Hello. Today I'm going to be doing a vlog. I just want to talk about some things in a more organized fashion than I have previously. Some time ago, I made a video regarding Grey Jedi. I was trying to explain what that is as a concept in the Star Wars canon. How there aren't Grey Jedi, but it's like a term. It's like calling someone apostate, right? You know, it's like saying, oh, you're gray. You use the dark side, you're one of those. You don't follow the rules, kind of, you know. It's a holier-than-thou elitism term, right? When someone says, you know, that someone's a Grey Jedi, right? The Jedi on the Council considered... in the prequels, considered Qui-Gon to be a Grey Jedi because he was deviant. He didn't follow the rules directly. He interpreted them in his own way. And so they called him a Grey Jedi. I gave a lot of information in that video regarding a lot of stuff to try to explain Grey Jedi. Because everything's connected, you know. I mean, you used to start talking about one thing that's complicated, and you end up having to explain so much other stuff. And maybe I should try to create a curriculum to explain this stuff instead of going on tangents. That might be better. So I actually did create a more organized explanation for something. A while ago, I was called to teach in class in Sunday school, and I was like, I'm going to use Star Wars as a teaching tool, and I was super excited because, Star Wars is awesome, and the gospel is awesome, and so I thought I'd share that here because it's really cool, and I want to share it. I want to share my observations and my thoughts. So this is the lesson I wrote up. It has a visual teaching tool. But I'm probably not going to do that part. I'm just going to read through what I put here. So, and give my thoughts and modify things if I think if I think I have a better way to put it. So, the Star Wars continuity, canon, mythos in general is an excellent teaching tool for the gospel, as all Mormons know. The Star Wars original trilogy, when it was completed, encapsulates a very important idea, and that is the important idea of unconditional love. It demonstrates Luke's journey of heroism, of growing up, of coming to terms with his, learning to face his challenges and overcoming them, learning to face his identity challenges, right, and discover who he truly is, which is a Jedi, right, a being of light. And he redeems his father, who's a Sith, who committed atrocious acts. And one of the important ideas is that Luke, even though Vader was evil, he killed kids, right, he was redeemable. And Luke never lost faith that there was good in Vader. That's a very interesting idea. It's amazing Star Wars is as popular as it is, considering how taboo the idea is of killing kids. I mean, if you think of someone as a kid killer, you don't exactly think of them in a compassionate light. You don't go, that person, you don't go, oh, well, they've got potential, they can still do some good in the world, right? Just give them a second chance, you think they killed kids. I mean, it's taboo, right? People think of that and they think they're evil. There's no redemption available. And here we have Star Wars, and because it's fiction, it can promote this message of unconditional love can redeem anyone, no matter how evil they are. That is exactly what the gospel is about. It's about redemption. It's about fulfilling your true divine potential, right? And how we're all children of God, and everyone can, be redeemed from their fallen state and can overcome their weaknesses and move forward and be forgiven, right? No matter what they've done, which is an outstanding idea. It's also a very hard idea to swallow when you begin to actually think about it, because you think of the kind of people there are in the world, and it's hard to accept the gospel is true in certain circumstances, right? It's like it's true when it's convenient, but when I really have to forgive Hitler, right? Like, I mean, the worst person ever, a baby killer, someone that kills babies and harvests their organs and sells them on the black market. I don't know, like the worst thing possible that you can imagine. Like, is the gospel still true? That's a hard question to answer, and I think a lot of us wrestle with that. Is love real? Is perfect love real? Not just love, is perfect love? Is the love of Christ real? Is the love of God real? Is infinite love real? That's a hard question to answer. And I'm not going to tell you, that it's real. I'm going to tell you I think it's real. And if you think that I'm a terrible person because I think I could forgive someone for doing something incredibly awful, which a lot of people might think they're condemned for doing, should be condemned for doing, then that's fine. But I implore you to ask these questions yourself and to study and to seek to learn if love is real, to seek to understand the gospel. Anyways, Star Wars as a teaching tool. Here we go. In regards to the Sith and the Jedi. Oh boy, I love this. It's outstanding. So in the Book of Mormon, you have these two tribes. You have the Nephites and the Lamanites. And I mean, to say these guys hate each other would be an understatement. They've been at war for hundreds of years. The Lamanites and the Nephites used to be one tribe. They arrived in the ancient Americas, the Mesoamericas, roughly 600 BC. And they split off into different tribes because of a bitter rivalry between two brothers. Well, technically 4 brothers? I don't know. But, there was 2 sides. There was the brothers that were like, oh, well, we believe in God, and we believe in the principles and the laws and the commandments, and we're going to try to follow them and teach them to our children and our children's children, etc., right? And Nephi is kind of like the leader. He's kind of the presiding man in this group. And then you have the Lamanites, who believe that, well, they didn't necessarily believe anything against that. What they were was they were bitter because they didn't believe in the laws. They didn't have faith in God. They didn't believe in love. And they were ashamed. They were ashamed of their wickedness. They were ashamed when they broke the laws. And so, I mean, what are you going to do when you're ashamed? But turn it around and be like, actually, no, you're the bad one because you get all the good attention for doing things that I don't think you should have to do, right? It's just like Cain and Abel, right? Not fulfilling your sacrifices properly, not doing your best, and then turning it around and be like, well, actually, it's Abel's fault for making it so that he gets all the goodness because he does what's right. It's like this bitter vindictiveness. Now, I don't claim to understand that psychologically 100%, but I believe it's actually, it doesn't have a lot to do with the relationship to the other person. Cain didn't actually, that's because I believe love is real and prevails, and that what we do out of love. Even things that are based in fear, we do out of love. Love for ourselves, right? Which is selfishness. Or rather love for our temporary self, our temporal self. Who we are at the moment, we're afraid of letting go of that. We love that. We love that identity. And so we hold on to it. And to avoid losing it, we're going to come up with excuses to not change. If someone has an identity, if Cain has the identity that he's already a failure, and he doesn't want to put in the effort because he doesn't believe he can put in the effort to make proper sacrifices, then, oh my gosh, I'm going on tangents again. I'm so sorry. Let me continue. Let me finish this one. if he doesn't believe that he can put in the effort because he's ashamed of himself and his failures, he was hurt at some point because of circumstance, right? Then he's got an identity. Maybe it happened when he was so young that it was just ingrained in him. Now he's grown up and he doesn't perform well because of this identity in his nervous system. And so he fails. He doesn't do proper sacrifices. He thinks he's doing his best because he really feels bad, and like he can't do it, and it's overwhelming him. No, this is all conjecture. This is all hypothesis theory, brainstorming, exploring this from a psychological perspective, from the school of psychology I follow. He really thinks that he's doing his best, and so he projects his shortcomings outward. Vindictiveness. Oh man, I don't know. I still haven't wrestled with this all the way, but I think that one way it could be is that we want other people to help us. Because if we're failing, we need help. I hypothesize that Abel didn't help Cain. He thought it was Cain's responsibility to succeed, to do proper sacrifices for himself. And maybe he was a little bit condescending or condemn, like maybe he condemned Cain a little bit. And so Cain's reaction to that was, well, because you're not good enough, I'm going to kill you to teach you a lesson. Essentially, right? I'm going to teach you a lesson that you need to be better than that. Because we know deep down that, I don't know. It's like, so this is where it gets complicated, because it's like, this is like dealing with Hindu levels of cosmic theology, which is like that we're Ravana and we are a good guy, but we're being bad to push the envelope of human understanding by forcing those that are good to be better. That is Hindu cosmic theology. That is very intense stuff. I don't know if I'm quite ready to tackle that yet, conceptually, in regards to the Bible, to the story of Cain and Abel. But we could say in this case that vindictiveness is Abel was bitter that he failed, and so he projected it outwards. That actually, no, it's not me failing, it's Abel failing. It's everyone else failing. We're all failing together because I'm failing. And in a way, that's true. We know that's true. We know that bad things don't just arise in a vacuum. If someone does something evil, we look at the circumstances of their life and we see, how do they turn out like that? How were they raised? How were, and it's hard to do that because you can't see everything in their life. You can't know everything that happened. And so there's a lot of fear of being responsible placed on a lot of people, like parents and family members, and it's complicated, and you can't just, say it was their fault. You have to leave it in the open that anything could have happened. Something could have happened to them when you weren't around. Well, no one else was around. That affected them deeply, and they didn't reach out because of something else that happened, and pathology, layered, causing more neuroticism to arise. Anyways, so we'll say that instead of getting into the Hindu cosmic theology side of things, we'll just say Cain blamed everyone, including himself, at some level. And so he punishes everyone else, or rather he punishes the closest person to the situation, which is Abel. And he kills him. I totally forgot where I was going with this. I started this. There was something, I was going to wrap it around back to Nephites and Lamanites. So I think maybe... So the Lamanites did what Cain did to Abel. They were bitter and vindictive, that they were suffering because of their iniquities. And they blamed everyone, including themselves. And that's an important thing to recognize, is that when you blame other people for your problems, you're also blaming yourself. There's a measure of self-loathing there. There always is. At some deep level, you despise your weakness. And that manifests in all sorts of ways. Sometimes it's in the body or whatever, right? But there's going to be a level of self-loathing. You can't discount it. But it's not strong enough to... Sometimes it is strong enough, and it causes people to attack themselves rather than attack other people. But usually that vindictiveness goes hand in hand. It's usually self-loathing and other loathing together to some differing degrees. So they chose to separate from the Nephites because the Nephites inherited the land. The Lamanites were bitter, and they would constantly wage wars against the Nephites to try to take what they thought was stolen from them. They felt like it was stolen from them. It's like, well, we should have the land too. And they would if they hadn't split off, if they had maintained their unity as a tribe. But they didn't. They thought that the Nephites were bad because they weren't good enough to help the Lamanites be good. So they split off and warred against them, conflicted with them. So this happens over and over and over and over again. They fight. Lamanites take some land, and Nephites are humbled, repent, get power, fight back, take back their land, right? They become prideful because they're victorious. Then they're defeated again because they're prideful. They become complacent. The Lamanites end up attacking. And it always perpetuates the cycle of violence. And I would call that the pride cycle. It might also be called the... it's the pride cycle. Anyways, so the ancient Jedi in Star Wars are comparable to the Nephites. And something interesting that we don't see in the Book of Mormon is the conclusion to this cycle. We do see a conclusion. We see, we don't see the good conclusion. We see a turning point, rather. The turning point is that Christ comes, he visits the Americas, other sheep I have that are not of this fold, and he teaches the gospel and establishes a church. After his resurrection, right? And the Nephites and the Lamanites both are odd, and for a time things get better, but then again the cycle continues. 100 years later, things change. People become complacent, and they didn't continue the practices that keep them with a heart of love and a mind of light. And so eventually the Nephites become prideful again and complacent, and the Lamanites become bitter again and warlike and vindictive, and conflict ensues, and eventually the Nephites are completely destroyed because they eventually got to the point where they would refuse to repent even when they were getting totally destroyed by the Lamanites, who were angry and bitter. Now in Star Wars, in the continuity, we see something amazing. We see an alchemy occur, the changing of the soul. All right. We see the good ending that was missed out on, the good ending that we are called to strive for, and where the Book of Mormon is a teaching tool to show us what happens when we don't strive for it, right? So here we begin Star Wars history. Ancient Jedi are a collection of diverse and gifted beings from all over the galaxy. They're collected by these mysterious artifacts called the Thoyor. And they bring these people that are gifted in the Force to this planet called Tython, which is this harsh jungle planet. Strong in the Force, there's great Force energy there, but it's harsh and wild and untamed. And these people have to get along and learn how to survive on the planet. And they cooperate, they get along, they learn how to use the Force to survive, and they establish what is called a Jedi Order. And they build temples of knowledge to preserve their understanding of how to thrive, even under harsh conditions. And you know, it's kind of like this intuitive knowledge. It's this esoteric religious establishment, right? The Jedi Order isn't philosophically sophisticated enough to articulate things in a way that everyone else can understand. It's more like a religious thing for them and themselves. It's like, okay, you have the light side and you have the dark side, and you have, you know, this mysterious energy field, and, you know, it's all like esoteric, and it's not grounded in individual experience? No. Experientiality? I don't know. Basically, it's not philosophically articulate to a degree that you could describe how things work for other people. It's religious. It's esoteric. The concepts of light and dark are esoteric. They're symbolic. And so, you know, they establish their Jedi Order, and on the other side of the galaxy, there is the Sith species. They live on Korban. Korban is a paradise world, and they're warlike. They're always warfaring each other. They're competitive. They have a caste system, so they're like, you know, fascist and tribal and feudal, and they hate themselves. They hate each other. They're always fighting and competing, you know, for control. And there's this great big precursor species called the Rakata, who are given technological power from other precursors before them, and they advance, and they want to conquer the galaxy, and so they do pretty much conquer most of the known galaxy, pretty much all the known galaxy, and they run across the Jedi, and they run across the Sith. And the Jedi, you know, because they're unified and wise and powerful and prepared, they easily fend off the Rakatan invaders. The Sith, because they're fighting amongst themselves, are sorely beaten. Their homeworld, Korban, is destroyed. I mean, it's not completely destroyed, but it's turned into a desert wasteland, right? Similar to what happened at Tatooine. And eventually the Sith tribes unite under King Adas, who is a gifted Sith warrior and magician. And they successfully eventually beat the Rakatan and fend them off. But they're sorely beaten, and their home was a mess. It's a wasteland. And so they look up at the stars, and they swear vengeance upon the stars. They say, "We will conquer everything. We will have all the power. That way nothing else can ever hurt us again." They experience trauma. They look outward and blame everything else. It's the galaxy. It's not us. We will fight, conquer, own everything, so that way nothing can hurt us again. Now the Jedi go on to cooperate with the formation of the Galactic Republic, and they act as peacekeepers. They help mediate conflict and maintain peace and help people get along and help new races and nations and integrate into the Galactic Republic. And the Sith, they start creating a little empire. They have a few planets. They eventually develop space travel, and they have a few planets. And the Jedi Order starts to become complacent because they've gotten really good at their job, and they become more wary of the dark side, in that they or less understanding of it. Right? Originally, they had that concept of understanding the dark side, embracing it. Right? You embrace the dark side, but you keep to the light. So and that's a religious idea, but it's not articulated. So of course, future generations aren't going to understand it. All they know is that the dark side can suck a lot. When things go bad, and so they start to be more in the light, less understanding of the dark. And there's a group of Jedi called Dark Jedi that arise that want to understand the dark, and they want to embrace it. And they discover all sorts of things you can do with the dark side, And this is completely ideologically contrived at this point. The ideas of dark and light have completely been disconnected from the original meaning, because a lot of time has passed and people have forgotten. And so these Jedi are called Dark Jedi, and the Jedi Order tells them to stop, tells them to leave. Eventually they cast them out, and they raise an army and fight the Jedi Order, and this is what we call the Great Schism. And then they're defeated and cast out, and the Jedi cast them, and the Republic cast them out. This happens, I think, another time, and the second time it happens, I think it's the second time, the Dark Jedi find their way to Korriban, and they become the first lords of the Sith, because the Sith worship them as extra, planetary conquerors, right? These Dark Jedi are very skilled in the use of the Force, and the Sith are like, wow, you came here, and we will follow you. And so they become the lords of the Sith. That is where the Sith religion is created. It's not just Sith culture, which is that we will conquer everything and have all the power. It is now a Sith religion. It's like, okay, there's these heralds from the stars that want to conquer everything too, and they're willing to take us with them, and we will be with them. We will conquer the stars. And so now it's like there's lords of the Sith leading the Sith to victory. So the Sith Empire and the Lords of the Sith attack the Republic, and the Republic and the Jedi are like, we don't like your warfaring despotism. We're going to fight you and defeat you. And so they do. And this happens over and over and over again. The Sith attack the Republic. The Republic defeats the Sith. The Sith attack the Republic. Defeats the Sith. Eventually, as the Jedi become more confident and complacent and prideful, and the Republic becomes prideful and complacent as well as corrupt because it's bureaucracy, the Sith eventually, they find ways of defeating the Republic. The Republic gets defeated, and then the Sith get defeated, and the Republic gets defeated, and the Sith gets defeated, and then the galaxy enters a dark age because of all the conflict. And and in this dark age, one Sith realizes this is unsustainable and everything is going to be destroyed. The Sith are going to be destroyed. The galaxy is going to be destroyed. The Sith religion needs to prevail. The Sith need to conquer everything. If there's nothing left to conquer, then it's game over, right? And so he plans to go into hiding, to destroy the Sith and go into hiding, and then the Sith will gain power in hiding. And this Sith's name is Darth Bane. So he lures all the Sith one world and tricks them into destroying themselves and a lot of Jedi while he's at it. And then he goes in hiding. The Republic thinks the Sith have been defeated. The Jedi think the Sith have been defeated. He takes an apprentice, Darth Zana, and they continue the lineage through what is called the Rule of Two, which is where there's only one Sith Lord. Well, technically there's two Sith Lords. There's the Master and the Apprentice. One to hold the power, and the other to crave it. And they pass on, and once the apprentice grows strong enough, they kill the master, take the power, and then take their own apprentice, and that cycle repeats until they find a Sith that is powerful enough to defeat the Republic and the Jedi. And eventually they get to Palpatine. Darth Plagueis is the master, and he takes Palpatine, and Palpatine is at a point where he can infiltrate the Republic. And so is Plagueis, technically speaking, but he figures he'd rather have his apprentice do it, and take the chair of power. And so he and Palpatine work together to get him into the Senate and get him as Chancellor. And he becomes Chancellor. He circumvents the bureaucracy. He stages a war to do so. He creates an army. He pretends he's the Jedi's friend, and he gets the Jedi to lead his army. When things are in the right position, he dissolves the war, has his army kill the Jedi, and there you go. The Sith win. The Republic is defeated, and the Jedi are gone. Now, this isn't exactly what happened in the Book of Mormon, comparably. It's very similar, in a way. But one important factor is that there was a good Jedi, a good kid, who wanted to be a Jedi because he was selfless. He wanted to free all the slaves because he was a slave. He understood what it was like. So he's like, I'm going to become a Jedi one day and free all the slaves. His name's Anakin Skywalker. And he has a chance to do so, but he has dependency on his mom because he's a slave. He's had a traumatic childhood. He doesn't want to lose his mom because his mom's the only thing he's had. But he wants to follow his dream and be a Jedi. The Jedi are good, guys. It's very important to recognize this. They are a imperfect organization of imperfect individuals, but they do the best they can to do good in the galaxy. However, they have been disconnected from the source of the Force for a long time. They have been in the darkness for a long time. Why have they been in the darkness? Because they do not understand the darkness, right? Light means something very simple. It means what is bright and allows you to see. To be truly in the light, you need to be able to see all things, including what's in the dark. And so to truly follow the light and be in the light, you must see in the dark. The light must come from within. But the Jedi did have the light from within. Some did, a little bit, like Qui-Gon, for example. But ultimately, as an order, they were largely in the shadows, blinded to what was in the dark, and therefore they could not combat it or understand it or work past it. And so they were fooled by the Sith and destroyed by the Sith. Anakin wanted to be a Jedi. He became a Jedi. His mom dies. He develops really great anxiety about losing the woman in his life, and he attaches himself and obsesses over Padme, his wife. And he's afraid she's going to die, and Palpatine manipulates him to come to the dark side, fools him into thinking that if he joins him in his quest to bring order to the galaxy, that he can teach him how to save his wife from death. Because the dreams that he's having that Padme's going to die. And so, he gives in, and, the Jedi are destroyed, and he helps the Emperor, the Sith Lords, Darth Sidious, Palpatine, destroy the Jedi, hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. And so he's a good guy with a good heart who was manipulated into doing really bad things, and he gave in to evil. And so, he has kids though before his wife dies, and he doesn't know that, but his kids are strong in the Force. And the original trilogy is about Luke Skywalker, who is a farm boy. They're split up, and his twin sister Leia goes to Alderaan, and he goes to Tatooine, and learns that eventually he learns when he's of age. He learns that he has a heritage of a Jedi Knight, and he should go on this mission to rescue the princess and save the galaxy. And so he does. He joins the rebellion against the evil Galactic Empire, and they're about to win, right? Because the Emperor's on this great big super weapon, and if they can destroy the super weapon, they destroy the Emperor. But as far as they know, right? And we'll get into Dark Empire and the synthesical trilogy of the 9-story saga. And I call it a story because there's only 6 movies, but if there was a third trilogy of movies, it would probably be based off of Dark Empire, and that would be the sequel trilogy of the original canon, which is the only canon that I talk about, by the way, when I refer to Star Wars. But we'll get into Dark Empire later. I think it would be the synthesis of the trilogies, because the thesis is the prequels, the antithesis is the original trilogy, and there's got to be a synthesis, right? Dialectics, which I think is the best theory regarding Star Wars mythology. But yeah, so at the end, Luke has to confront his father, who he finds out he's father in the second movie, Empire Strikes Back, and he is asked to join his father, and he resists, and he finishes his training as a Jedi Knight. But to truly be a Jedi, he has to confront his father. All the other Jedi, Yoda and Obi-Wan, imply that he needs to kill his father. They don't really know, that Vader can be redeemed. They think he's got to go. They think him and the Emperor have to get out of there. They're Sith. They have to defeat them, because that's what Jedi thought for forever. And when there's a bad dude who's using the dark side and abusing the dark side, you have to defeat them. You have to kill them. You have to get rid of them. You have to stop them from being around. And Luke decides to forgive his father. He decides to surrender to him and to trust that his relationship to his father, his attachment to his father as his son, and his love for his father is sufficient to awaken the awareness of love in his father that will bring back Anakin, turn Vader back into Anakin, and help, and Anakin will help Luke defeat the Emperor and save the galaxy. And so he does, he plays the game a little bit, he fights Vader, and but then at the end he throws away his lightsaber when the Emperor finally asks him to kill Vader, and he says, "You have failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi like my father before me." And that is the key there. He reminds his father, Anakin, that he's a Jedi. That he's still a Jedi. There's still good in him. He can still do what's right. He can still be a warrior of light. And, because that was his dream from the very beginning, was to free slaves, to achieve freedom for the galaxy at large. And the galaxy is now it's under the most oppressive and tyrannical shroud that it's ever seen ever. So he has the biggest opportunity to free everyone, to kill the Emperor and free everyone, right? And so he does just that. When the Emperor is about to kill Luke, he picks the Emperor up and throws him down the reactor shaft. It's like, all right, well, here I am. I'm a Jedi again. He's redeemed. He does what he intended to do from the very beginning. And Luke is now truly a Jedi. A true Jedi. Greater, or not even a true Jedi. Yeah, a true Jedi, because he integrated the darkness. He redeemed the darkness. He saw into the dark. He saw what was in the dark, and he brought it back into the light. Right? Which is different than saying, oh, what's in the dark is of the dark. And I just got to get rid of it. It's like, kill the darkness. Get rid of it. It's like, that's what the Jedi have been doing for a long time. That's not what the ancient Jedi did. The original Jedi Order on Tython. But they didn't have a development of an articulated... They didn't develop an articulated understanding of their conceptualization of the Force, and so people couldn't pass it down. People couldn't understand it, and so the Jedi fell into complacency and dogma, and started separating the lightness from the dark in a hostile fashion, not in a loving fashion, right? And so when Luke decides to go into the dark and bring it into the light, to go into Vader and bring him back into Anakin Skywalker, turn him back into Anakin, to convert him back to the light. He's achieved full synthesis, alchemical synthesis of the soul. He's discovered the power of love, the true healing power, conversion power of love, to bring what is in the dark back into the light. Now, that is very interesting, because that is where the Jedi Order changes. Luke, as opposed to the Nephites, succeeded. He, the Nephites were completely destroyed, but the Jedi Order, rather than being destroyed, a sliver of it remained. Luke survived, grew up, became a Jedi, and transformed the Jedi Order into a perfect good instead of a mostly good, right? Instead of just trying to fight the Sith and, the Sith are evil, just like the Nephites with the Lamanites, so the Lamanites are evil, just got to fight them, right? He took the Sith and he chose to love them. He took Vader, he chose to love Vader and forgive him and trust that Anakin was still in there and bring him back into light. And that is just, I don't know how I can emphasize how great this is. And so from there, the Jedi Order changes. The Jedi Order is no longer about being anti-Sith. It's about being warrior of light. It's about loving. And so the rest of the post-Endor continuity of the original Star Wars canon is Luke creating a Jedi Order, reestablishing a Jedi Order that forgives, right? And you see this happen multiple times, where a Jedi goes to the dark and they brought back to the light, and that's something that just doesn't happen in the original, not in the original, the pre-Endor era, the original trilogy era of Star Wars, the prequels, the Old Republic. Jedi just don't go dark and then come back and are redeemed. Well, there's rare cases where they do, but it's not because they were loved. It's not because, of some miraculous self-sacrifice. There was no selflessness involved. It was just, eventually they realized, the darkness wasn't good for them, and they needed to come back to the light. But, there's plenty of existential crises to go around, and redemption arcs should be had. But this is the one where, because of selfless self-sacrifice, choosing to surrender to the darkness, trusting fully in the light that everything would be well in the end, to unconditionally love what was in the darkness, to bring it back to the light. This is the first time that's happened in Star Wars, in the continuity. And that is amazing. That is amazing. And so the rest of the continuity is him teaching other people to do what he did. And him having to do that too. So that's why a lot of the post-Ender stuff deals with trying to redeem Sith. It's like Kyle Katarn tried to get Jarek to surrender to him. It's like, I forgive you. I will not kill you. I will not give in to the darkness. I will not kill you. Right? And Jarek ends up killing himself because he's a fool. And Kyle just gets out of the way. And that's why, Luke forgives Kip Duran, even though he did something terrible, in a fit of rage and terror. That's why, man, there's so many good. This is why Luke forgives Mara and redeems her, and then they end up getting married. And but yeah, they don't make them like that anymore, huh? That's funny, how the people that made the sequels just completely missed that whole theme. They totally didn't understand what was going on there. Like, actually, Luke didn't. Luke's still a freaking petty Jedi who's afraid of the dark side. Have him try to kill his nephew so we can have a new bad guy. So goofy, but oh well. So I'm gonna instantiate a new canon. I have a big project in mind. I'm gonna try to establish a Jedi Order here, where I live in Rexburg. And I know that sounds goofy, but I mean it's going to be a fun thing. It's mainly for fun, but at the core of it, at the core of the practice, is going to be the gospel. It's more like just going to be a club, but it's for the gospel. It's for teaching the gospel. And I'm going to try to buy property here and build a Jedi temple. And so I'm going to, to do all this, I'm going to have to actually start taking the continuity even more seriously. Star Wars, and like going through it and finding things that don't make sense, mistakes in the canon, which there are mistakes, but things that can be like altered slightly or reinterpreted in a way that actually makes them conducive to teaching gospel truths. And I'm going to establish a new canon. I think it's about time, because we have like the original GC canon of the George Lucas canon hierarchy. It's like people don't even know what that is, first of all. But basically there was a canon hierarchy back when George owned Lucasfilm, and they had the G canon, which was like the principles of Star Wars, the transcendent principles, the foundational ideas that were found in his movies. And then there's the C canon, which is the continuity canon, which is the story of Star Wars as is from beginning to end, including all the books and comics. And then you had the S canon, which was like secondary canon, kind of like side stories that could be incorporated at some point. And then like non-canon, which was just everything else, like the Infinities comics and some gameplay elements of video games or alternative endings and that kind of stuff. And yeah, Star Wars has a canon for a reason. It's a mythos. It's religious. It teaches us profound truths about the cosmos. And about the human experience. You could learn how to live your life through studying Star Wars. And it's not exactly necessarily plain and precious, although I'd say in a way it is. It's not exactly, it's not articulate. The articulation is happening now in this age of enlightenment. We're learning how to articulate these things, these esoteric ideas. I'm learning. I suck at it. I'm getting better every day, but hopefully what I say doesn't sound like complete gibberish. What was I saying? I forgot. I totally forgot. Alright, so well, anyways, yeah. So I'm gonna establish a new canon, and oh, that's right. I was talking about the canons. You know, we need a new one. It's about time. Wait, a new one. A more comprehensively boundaried one. There's a lot of ambiguity regarding the canons in the Star Wars fandom. A lot of people just say legends and canon now, and when they say canon, they're referring to the Disney New Unified Canon, which, if you could even call it a canon, oh my goodness, there's like literally no attempt to do anything narratively meaningful there, and it's like they're abusing the word canon. You know, when people say canon, they just mean what's official, but that's nonsense. You know, canon is a specific concept. It's the idea that there's a truth to a story, a profound truth, a truth that's so important you have to keep track of it. It's like, well, we don't want to forget these ideas. You know, we have to remember this, and that's not any. Like people say Star Wars canon, they're referring to just what's official, But there is a Star Wars canon. There was one, or there is one. There's the original Star Wars canon, and there is a new one to be had if we take a better look at these stories and go through them and really try to highlight certain ideas, because there's an evolution occurring in the Jedi Order throughout the canon. They go from unsophisticated, inarticulate, esoteric religious people to dogmatic religious people, to prideful and complacent, to destroyed, to reborn, to enlightened, or at least having a little bit of a grasp of what enlightenment is, to really having a solid understanding of how you can be enlightened, to continually striving to achieve that enlightenment, and to being faced with even greater challenges and testing their understanding of that enlightenment. With the Yuuzhan Vong, and some other time I'll make a video regarding Dark Empire, breaking it down and why it is a fitting sequel to the original 9-movie idea for a Star Wars saga. Because fetch, I could get into it right now, but it's a lot. And that's all. Namaste.